All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan, he, him pronouns, and welcome to your online Scapegoat video. We're hoping to do this in one take, and I want to apologize to you first. We originally shot this video on a Sunday, and Erica assisted with me. We had several people helping out, but for one reason or another, that video is not going to work out. So you're going to see just me, and we're going to go through this. It should take you about an hour. The video quality is a little bit grainy. I will be checking the sound, and we'll be seeing some slides interspersed with just my talking head. The important thing for you to realize is that this is your online workshop. This is your safety workshop. If you go to other LARPs beforehand, they go over their safety tools and everything like that. What we're going to be going over today is basically the stuff that you would get in the first part of a workshop, because the second part of the workshop is actually enroll. So before you even show up, we need to make sure that you understand these concepts. The other thing that we have to do is you might not be coming in on a Wednesday and going to level 1. You might be showing up Thursday night. You might be showing up Friday night. And we don't want you to come in, and we can give you certain enroll things and help you, but we want to make sure everyone has this baseline of safety before they even show up, if that makes sense. So I'm going to get into it, and here's how this is going to work. There's an online quiz, and with that online quiz, you'll be able to stop this video because I'm going to tell you the answers. And while there's a lot of talking and looking at me, generally speaking, when we have an answer, either I'm going to pause and look at you knowingly, or I'm actually going to put a slide up so that you can read it. So you can hear it, you can read it, and then you'll see it is a multiple choice question. The quiz is correctable to 100, as we say in the flying world, which means it's not retributional. You can't really fail it. The purpose of this is so that I know that you know, or at least have heard it once, if that makes sense. So I say, hey, what color are Ryan's eyes? And I have a list of stuff. You have to put blue in order to continue, and I know that that is. So we have reinforced it. I'm going to try and keep this down to less than an hour. I know that you're all busy, but like I said, this is really important. So if at all possible, take a moment, get comfortable, put on some headphones, and remember, this is, a LARP that you're doing for fun, and this is not only for you, but for all the other participants and all the other staff. So let's all commit 1 hour to making sure that we get all the safety information. And I will try to be at least not completely dry as I talk to my wife's laptop and try and give you all the safety information. So here's a big picture, all right? We're going to go over 3 big takeaways for you by the end of this workshop, all right? And when you see me looking over here, that means I'm reading. And usually if I'm reading very carefully and not looking back over to you, I'm reading something that's going to be on the test or that we wanted to say to you verbatim, all right? So like I said, we have 3 big questions that we want you to be able to answer by the end of this. First question, what is Scapegoat's #1 threat? Second question, when in doubt, who do you contact? Third question, how do we make an out-of-role safety statement? If I get 3 things in the back of your brain that you remember out of this, I want you to remember our #1 threat, who do you contact if you have a question, and what is an out-of-role safety statement, because we use that mechanic for a lot of the safety. All right? So, continuing on. Like I said, some basics. Workshop will take an hour. It includes an online quiz. The quiz is open book. Pause this, go to the quiz, and then answer the question right there. You're going to have to be logged into Discord in order to complete this. I'm going to ask you to take a screenshot of something. So if you haven't logged onto Discord yet and haven't done that, you're not going to be able to complete this. So you might as well stop what you're doing and go follow the Discord link. I'll send it out again with the workshop, and then log into Discord, and then you'll be able to complete this video. One thing that we do ask, like we say, if you get something wrong, we'll contact you and make sure you know it. Hey, the best thing that happens is we talk about it in an email. But we want you to do this by yourself. Don't do it with anybody else. This is individual effort. All right? So let's start this off, shall we? What is What is Scapegoat's number one threat? Our number one threat is non-participants. Do not role play with non-participants. Scapegoat's pervasive. We're going to be playing out on the street with a variety of locations. There's going to be a lot of people present. What we worry about the most, so one thing that when we did a risk assessment stood out, is these interactions with other people. And this includes everything from negative interactions with like a bartender, to security interacting with you, to somebody harassing you, to you, let's be honest, you upsetting somebody that you're role playing with because you're really in on it and they haven't opted into role play, and that's just not cool. So the biggest thing that we want to make sure is that when you're dealing with a bystander, you do not role play with them. In addition to bystanders, non-participants include employees of businesses that we frequent, and even other people involved in Scapegoat who have opted out of participation for a time. For your safety, do not role play with non-participants. That sounds like a test question, right? Do not role play with non-participants. And what is a bystander? Who are non-participants? Bystanders, employees of businesses that we frequent, and people who have opted out of role play. All right. What constitutes role play? Because we said we don't want you to role play. So we mean something specific by that. For the purpose of this safety rule, role play means that you're in role and in the context of Scapegoat. It doesn't just mean in role, because I could be hungry in role and Ryan will eat, and I can order a sandwich without worrying about it, okay? But what I can't do is I can't include context from the LARP with that. So let's say that I am role-playing Fenris, and I ask the bartender for a drink. Not role-play, right? But if I start asking the bartender about enlightenment, or ask, hey, do you know where I can find Baba Yaga? Now I've introduced elements of the world into my conversation, and now we're calling it role-play. All right? So here's an example. All right. Do you know where the ritual is? That would be a question that is role play. However, I could ask somebody, because I know that I'm going to Bornham Hill, hey, do you know what Stop Bornham Hill is? That's not role play. That's independent of the context of the situation, of the LARP. Or let's say that you're looking for me playing Fenris. You could be, and you ask the bartender, is Fenris here? That is role play. But if you know what I look like, because you watched the video, you can be like, hey, is there a middle-aged white guy with blue hair, with blue eyes, blonde hair? And that's not role play. So now that we understand that, and we've gone over some examples, we want to make sure that you know, hey, you can talk to people. This is New York City. A pervasive game does not ignore the people around you. It acknowledges the people around you. But you have to interact with them ethically and not role play with them. Just to be specific, examples of role play include any mention of families, traditions, or in-role elements, use of in-roles names or handles, and any discussion of the supernatural. Do not do this. What isn't role play? Asking for directions, ordering or paying for drinks, help with out-of-world situations, including real-world emergencies. These are all A-okay. I'm doing well on time, so I'm going to try and slow down just a little bit for you, so I'm not talking too fast. Here's a quick note. What name should you use when you're dealing with non-participants? Your own. What we're going to say is diegetically, that means in the role. You can assume your Mancer has a fake ID, and it just so happens that the name on this fake ID is the same as the name on your real ID. That way, if you're asked by a bar, a restaurant, or other establishment for ID as you're coming in, that is perfectly acceptable to use in character. You don't have to break immersion for that. Another way to protect against non-participants, is a buddy system. So let's remember the buddy system. This is another big safety tool. We don't want you going anywhere alone. One way for you to remember what to do with the buddy system, remember this, okay? And one of our first questions to you will be, where's your buddy? And that's not calling you out on being alone. It's because we say, hey, this is an important tool and we want you to be with your buddy. If you're in distress, we're going to help you. But if it's just something like, hey, I don't know where anybody is, we're going to be like, do you have a buddy with you? And just to reinforce, hey, make sure you have a buddy with you. Anyway, big part of this is the 3 Bs of the buddy system. We want you to be able to remember this. Always have a buddy. All right? Whenever you're walking around New York City, have a buddy. Even if you're from New York City, especially if you're from New York City, because somebody who lives here would be able to help out somebody who doesn't. So maybe think about that. There's going to be people uncomfortable with the subway and that sort of thing. Next B, back each other up. New York City's generally a pretty safe place, but we want you to have a friend there in case you get into any trouble. At the very least, while you're in trouble, if they can't get there to help you right away, they can give us a call because maybe you can't make a phone call right at that moment. And finally, build role play. Having a buddy builds role play. You're going to be doing a lot of traveling, and particularly on Thursday, we're expecting you to have a lot of downtime, and we want you to remain in character and do in-character things, which means you have to have somebody around you. So always focus on keeping somebody around you so you can have that role play. And not only will it keep you safer, but it'll keep you in the experience. It'll also prevent you from getting distracted by non-participants, if that makes sense. All right, we have one more big rule for you to follow. Okay, in regards to non-participants. So we talked about do not role play with them. We talked about the buddy system. The last thing to protect us from non-participants, and this will solve a lot of problems, is no weapons or weapon props of any kind. I don't care if it's made of foam. I don't care if it's painted Origin or sold in toy stores. We don't want you to carry anything that resembles a weapon, all right? That even means things that could be construed as weapons, like pool cues. If you have your own pool cue, it folds up into, you can disconnect it into something innocuous. That's why they're designed like that. There's no reason to be carrying, a 3.5, 4 foot stick around the streets of Manhattan at night, right? So let's not do that. So no weapons or weapon props of any kind. Now that we've addressed our number one concern. That's a big one, right? We're 12 minutes in. We talked about what our number one threat is. Do not role play with non-participants. We're going to go over some other rules that we have in place to make you feel safer. All right, and a lot of these tied into the code of conduct and anti-harassment policy, which we have online. We have in the participant guide, and we also made sure that we copied and pasted in the survey. And some of you might have read it, and some of you might have gone through, but everybody has completed a survey, which is all of you, have signed off, yes, I have read and understand the code of conduct and anti-harassment policy. There's a couple things that we want to highlight, because I know that you might not have read it. Hey, you have to figure that out when you're designing something. Some people might not read the instructions. Listen to this, and we're going to go over a few key things, all right? First off, we need to be clear what events are covered by the code of conduct, because it's always a little bit fuzzy, and we're making this rule. From the first time that you show up in person to an event at Scapegoat, whether it's level 1, the Fight Call and Participation workshop before that, any time that you show up until after you leave brunch on Sunday, all right? So if you never see us again, you leave in the middle of Wednesday because you're like Wednesday level 1, because you don't like that, we're saying until the end of brunch on Sunday, you are covered by the code of conduct, all right? That includes all online interactions over Discord. We're just saying we're going to bound it this time to this time. That's when we're going to say that you're bound by code of conduct, all right? Outside of that, we have some discretion, but that's the important thing. So, when we're dealing with the code of conduct, we're going to start off with sex and violence, all right? These are some key parts of it. Now, I don't personally like violence, but it has a place in some stories. And one of the design things that we want to do in Scapegoat is we want to keep it to very specific places so that violence didn't have to be part of your story. That means that we zoned it. And if you read the participant guide, you see about zone scenes. However, outside of these zone scenes, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, outside of their zone scenes, there is no violence at all in Scapegoat. There's no pushing or shoving. There's no simulations of violence. You are playing non-violent people who will not engage in violence outside of very specific situations. So that's just not something that should happen at any point in the LARP, and we're very serious about Unlike violence, we do like sex. Sex is an act that expresses affection and gives pleasure in regards to another person, and when it does, it's awesome. But there are also times that some of these actions aren't so good, and we don't want you to have to interact with anything like that if you don't want to. And because the intense emotion, we're also zoning that activity. And if you think about it, we're zoning the things that really involve physical contact between people. So the one rule that we have is at all times, while you're governed by the code of conduct, so while you're here, it's the time that we're responsible for, if you intend to have any sexual contact with another participant or facilitator or staff or anybody involved in Scapegoat, you have to ask for and receive positive and continued verbal consent. All right? So what does that look like? That means that not just yes, but means yes, but that means that you are constantly getting, hey, I want to do this, may I do this, if that makes sense, and be very specific about it. So you can say, I want to kiss you, or I want to have sex with you, and then get back the answer, and then continue with that. Make sure you rephrase it as a question. Say, will you, or something along those lines, okay? All physical contact requires consent. For any sexual contact, we are requiring that it be verbal and explicit and continued. As far as any in-role activities, we have a workshop for what happens in zone scenes. It's our fight, call, and physicality workshop. If you want to participate in any scenes that are zoned for sexual contact or zoned for violence, you have to participate in that in-person workshop. Well, you'll be seeing me for 4 hours, and we go through it, and we talk exactly how we can do this safe. However, if it's just you and a consenting adult, go for it. We have a couple of specific things that we do want you to remember if you're doing that. If you're outside of the zone scene, we don't want you to be touching any breasts, buttocks, or groin, if that makes sense. So no chest, no buttocks, or groin. Just keep that to either a private area or a zone scene. But if you're not in a zone scene, and the reason being is now we're at a level of sexual contact where you might not expect on the streets of New York City, and we don't want to expose either other participants or non-participants to that. Talking about zones, I've mentioned it a couple times, so this part's important, all right? So we're saying that these are zoned, so they're not appropriate for all participants, and we will identify these zones before you go. But the question is, what is a zone scene? A zone scene contains an element whose presence participants must acknowledge before they enter. I'll say that again. A zone scene contains an element whose presence participants must acknowledge before they enter. How will you know you're in a zone scene? First, the scene will not be in a public place. It'll be private. And at a certain point, we'll restrict access to it. So you can't come in after it starts without at least facilitator interaction. It's not walk in, walk out. You can always walk out, but to come back in, you need somebody to let you in so that we can get that you're consenting to coming in. So it will not be public. Access will be restricted. You're going to hear these words after access is restricted. The facilitator will say, enroll. Welcome. As you can see, this is quite an exclusive zone you've entered. You're about to encounter a very sexual scene. Is everybody ready? Raise your hand if you're ready. If it's about violence, let's say a very violent scene. If it has a different thing that we might be zoning it for example, loud noises, we'll say a very loud scene. We will tell you what the scene is about. We're going to get everybody there to raise their hand, and then we're going to do another thing. After we get group consent, we're going to ask you, raise your hand if you have questions or you want to talk, so that if you're like, I'm not really sure, and you didn't raise your hand, then you can come get us. We're going to make sure, our facilitators are going to make sure that they see everybody raise their hand at least once, and they talk to everybody who raised their hand the second time. All right, and you're going to opt into that scene. All right, remember the phrase, an exclusive zone, signals this is a zone scene. So this is an exclusive zone equals this is a zone scene. So after the script, everybody should understand they're in a zone scene, and once everybody's ready, we'll begin. Remember, if you don't know why a scene is zoned, ask. The start of the scene is your chance to make sure you're in the right place. And remember, you can always leave. You can always leave any scene, whether it's zoned or not. You can always leave. Now, physical touch. We talked about violence and sexuality. We talked about zone scenes. Physical touch, like we said, we have a big workshop about physical touch. And let's make sure that I'm still recording, as my MacBook just interrupted. I do apologize. I forgot one thing that I will pause. It's a good time to take a pause on this one. We talked about sexuality and we talked about violence. We do not combine violence and sexuality. That is not part of Scapegoat. That is not something that we consider acceptable to our stories. You will not enter a scene with depictions of violence and sexuality. There are two nuances to this that we do want to talk about. One, some people might like hitting people during sex or being hit during sex. Some people might practice BDSM or kink. All right? That's 100% cool. We have no problem with that. For the sake of Scapegoat, we consider violence to be inherently non-consensual. So if you have a consensual act between two people, we do not consider that a combination of sex and violence. So please don't feel like your kink is unwelcome here in that regard, as long as it's consensual. And then the other thing is, some participants have worked with us on having elements of their background have some what we would call sensitive topics. If you have concerns about why we did this, you can talk to me, but generally speaking, when we work with a participant, we assume that they can handle topics that they're bringing to us, but we also work with them to understand that they have to self-zone these. They can't just bring these out in the middle of a public place or a non-zone scene. What they have to do is make sure everybody around them opts in. So be careful and be aware of that. But we've talked to this small number of people who are doing it. They are aware. They're going to be responsible. But when we say that there's no background elements, there are some background elements that some people might consider undesirable with which to role play. You should not have to encounter that, and if you do, please contact the staff, and we will address it very quickly. So we've gone through that. Let's get to the physical touch. All right. We're going to cover casual touch and consent, the hands up, and we already touched on it, but we already talked about it. But touch zones outside, no touch zones when you're not in a zone scene. So, starting off, first off, every physical touch requires consent. This isn't just a consent violation. This is also prevent physical injury. So I want you to stop. We're going to take a pause in this video because I have the three big things, right? I have what is our biggest threat? How do you contact somebody if you need help? And how do I use an out-of-role safety statement? But if there's another thing that traditionally I've seen be a problem at LARP in the past, it's physical contact. You cannot have physical contact of any kind without consent. There are people who have injuries. There are people who cannot be touched at all. All right? Like I said, sexual contact requires explicit verbal consent. However, some physical contact does not require verbal consent. Okay? It requires you to be careful and intentional and receive a nonverbal consent to it. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit of detail because this is very important. All right? First, never reach out and touch somebody from behind. Don't tap them on the back of the shoulder or anything like that. That cannot be done. If I'm not aware of your presence, and there is no way for me to know that you're aware of my presence from behind, you have to be facing them, particularly for nonverbal consent, because you have to see where they're looking or what they're doing with their hands or body. All right? So come to a spot where they can see you, and then you can gain verbal consent, nonverbal consent through a gesture. For example, a handshake or putting your arms out for a hug. All right? So those are two easy ones where if I put my hand out for a handshake and the other person takes my hand, that's very clear. If I put my hands out for a hug and they put their hands out for a hug, all right, now I know how to do a hug, right? There's other times that maybe it's a little bit less. So we're going to talk about bullet time consent. And because I did this with Erica when we shot the original video, it was very easy. So we're going to do this with my dice bag right over here. So you can see me. I have my dice bag. It's in my hand. And I'm going to reach out and touch it, okay? So this is somebody else's hand, all right? So we're going to say this is somebody else's hand, and I'm over here. They're going to reach out slowly for it, and they're going to wait. And the cue that they're looking for is my visual consent that I have this here. So they're going to wait and pause before they grab it, right? What does that do? It does a couple things. First, it's nice and slow and non-threatening, right? Second, it gives me a chance to react. We're not going to react until I do something. And when I do it, there's another beat before they do anything, and the entire action is not going to slow. That's bullet time consent. We're going to talk about that in the Fight, Call, and Physicality workshop to a much greater extent because we're expecting more contact. But remember, you can use that to touch somebody. So if I'm reaching for somebody's shoulder, I'm not just going to reach and put my hand on their shoulder. I'm going to reach, put the hand on the shoulder, and when the person looks, I'm going to put my hand down. Now, we're being explicit about that in the video because I personally have had an experience where I went like that, the person looked at me, and I grabbed them, and then I realized that I had screwed up because I never confirmed that, hey, the look right there is the sign of consent. So remember, so this is for bullet time consent, all right? What if, and remember, there's no touch zone, so we're going to get into that in a little bit. If I don't give consent, you're not going to touch me. But what if you want to be very clear, all right, that don't touch me? We have something called the hands up. The hands up is just putting your hands up like this. If you see somebody's hands up like this, that means don't touch them, all right? So whenever you see the hands up like that, that's our sign. It's our only physical sign because you can do this in the streets of New York City when somebody's getting close to you, and it's kind of a natural gesture is what we call it. So here's a natural gesture of do not touch me, and we call it the hands up. Now, the last thing that we have is we have 3 areas of the body that we consider no touch zones unless you're in a zone specifically zoned for that sort of touch. Please don't touch these 3 areas, the chest or torso, the groin, or the buttocks, all right? With that said, if you want to go make out with a consenting partner in public, we're not going to judge you. But if you're in role and not in a zone scene, don't touch those areas, all right? If you're in an appropriate zone scene, go ahead as long as you have consent, all right? That's all the physical touch. That's a big part of the code of conduct. The next thing that we have is specific to our anti-harassment policy. And a lot of our anti-harassment policy is, hey, what can go wrong, everything like that. But we have one issue we've identified over there that we want to go over in this online workshop, and that is misgendering. Misgendering is any time you use the wrong pronouns when referring to a person. If you make a mistake, the proper response is to say, I'm sorry, and then repeat what you said correctly. If somebody does misgender you and you need assistance, please reach out to any of our facilitators, online facilitator, any staff member, or a safety team. We'll be talking to all of them about it. A note on this. We consider name tags, but we really didn't want to have you wearing a distinctive name tag and go out to a bar because it invites questions from bystanders. And really what we don't want to do was make a lot of our signals innocuous so that you wouldn't notice it right away. So we didn't have name tags, all right? So we have 3 places that you can find a person's pronouns, all right? First is on Discord. It's right after their handle. So everybody's name, including staff, has their pronouns right after there. Second, if a person is on your character sheet, we should have made sure that all the pronouns referring to them are correct on the character sheet. And finally, we have a cast list. At any point in time, you can look at the cast list available online, and the things that are on there are the role, the person playing it, the in-role pronouns, and then a little bit of other information if you just need a reference. But those are the 3 places that you can find it. 1, on Discord, 2, on your character sheet, and 3, on the cast list. Do not assume that a participant's pronouns are the same as their character's pronouns. If you're in doubt, just ask. Further, If you're cisgender, please include your pronouns when introducing yourself out of role. Like I said, I'm Ryan, he, him, right at the beginning. We expect you to work that in so that it is the norm for this culture that we're trying to create. All right. So we've talked about a few key points of this one. The other thing that we want to make sure that you're aware of is that we do have consequences for breaking the code of conduct. These consequences are not intended to be punitive, they're intended to correct behavior. All right? The number one thing that we're trying to do is prevent further code of conduct violations. However, we do that. The four consequences we have four. A verbal warning, which will tell you at the very least what you did and what will happen if you do it again. Staff intervention, which is escorting you out, asking you to leave the scene anytime that we say you have to do something. Removal from the event, as in you're completely removed from Scapegoat, and then a permanent ban from Sinking Ship Creations events. Which consequence we choose is entirely at the discretion of Sinking Ship Creations, so myself, Jason Knox, or Betsy Isaacson. And like I said, we're just trying to make sure that nothing happens again. All right. If we come up to you and we say, "Hey, we've had a complaint, or we think there's been a code of conduct violation," we're not saying that you're a bad person. We're not trying to punish you. We're trying to make sure that it doesn't happen again and that your behavior matches the expectations that we have of what your behavior should be. So take a minute, listen to what happened, and help us get everybody on the same page, and then work with us and work with the rest of the staff to get you to the point where you can continue without any issue. The one thing that we don't want you to do is we don't want you to ask us who told us, or go speak to other participants about it, because that gets really awkward, if that makes sense. If you start asking around, then we're like, "Hey, what do we do here?" Remember, we're not trying to punish you, so we don't want you to go ahead and start acting like you have to defend yourself. If you have an issue, address the staff, and we'll try and take care of it, because you are still important to us even after you have had a violation. So that brings up another point. You can always talk to the staff. That's why we have an online facilitator. The online facilitator is there to address your out-of-role concerns. Remember, when in doubt, who do you contact? Contact the online facilitator if you have any issues who aren't sure who to contact. And that sounds like I've said something like that and reading it verbatim. I'll do it again. When in doubt, who do you contact? Contact the online facilitator if you have any issues and aren't sure who to contact. If you witness a code of conduct violation, or if you feel unsafe or comfortable speaking up, you have a couple of options right there. All right? So we want you to go on Discord. We will always have an online facilitator available 24 hours. We've paid to have somebody manning that computer in our ops center. So they're not just at home, they're with us 24 hours a day to answer that. Second, any facilitator is going to be trained on initial response, so they feel free to go up and talk to them. And third, add this number to your phone, 315-944-0348. This is our safety cell phone, and it'll be manned throughout the event. Calling it will reach me, Erica Scarpan, our runtime director, and Kat Adams, our safety officer. So one more time, that number is 315-944-0348. If you do tell us there is a problem, the first thing that we'll do is see to your well-being, then we see to other people's well-being, and then we work to fix a problem. You should receive a follow-up about the situation within 24 hours. And remember, Discord is our primary means for communication in these situations. So, we've been going for about 30 minutes right now. I've been doing a lot of talking. I've been going a lot of back and forth. You've been doing a lot of looking at slides. I know this is a little bit dry. And like I said, thank you for bearing with us with the quality of the video. I'm not sure what the quality of the sound is, but I just want to check in with you and say thank you for continuing to listen, and remember that this is very important. I've addressed two of the big questions so far. What is our number one threat? Our number one threat is unwanted interaction with non-participants. Do not role play with non-participants. If you have a question, who do you contact? You contact the online facilitator. All right? And then we're going to have another question that we're going to answer there in a bit. If you want pause it, go get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, leave the computer open, but we are halfway through and really you're in the home stretch. So, here we go. What happens when you report? One of the things we're going to ask you, and this is important to us, is do you feel uncomfortable or do you feel unsafe? All right? We want you to understand this distinction. We want you to feel like you can say that you feel unsafe, but we also want to give you the option of saying that you're uncomfortable because that's going to provoke different responses from us. Sometimes you're like, I need help, and we need to help you. And sometimes you're like, I have a concern, and I want my concern addressed, but it's not something like, hey, somebody's welfare is immediately in danger. Use this, all right? Unsafe means you perceived a condition that increases the risk of harm. I want to focus on a couple of those right there. 2 words. One is you perceive a condition. You don't need to judge whether or not it's there. You don't need to worry about whether or not it's real. We'll figure out what's going on, and we'll make a call based on that, and we have to live with our call and that sort of thing. But don't worry about whether or not you think it's real or important or anything. If you perceive a condition that increases the risk of harm, tell us immediately and call it unsafe so it gets our attention. And increases the risk of harm. What does that mean? All right, that means that there's a bad thing that can happen over there, and some condition is either increasing the likelihood or severity from what you would consider to be a normal acceptable risk. We've tried to make Scapegoat about as risky as a normal trip into Manhattan. Okay, assuming that you don't know this city, you come in here and walk around New York City and go to places and go to clubs and meet your friends. It should be about as risky, no more, no less. If you see something that makes it more likely that somebody would get hurt or have some sort of trauma, or would make that hurt or trauma greater, we want to know about it. All right, and that's what we consider unsafe. Any other situation, just tell us you feel uncomfortable. That's anything that causes you duress. That's cool. That's still a concern for us, and we'll still address it. It's just a way of, applying some sort of hierarchy of response to it. Based on your answer, we're going to respond how we deem appropriate, all right? Safety is our number 1 priority, and we also want you to understand that once you tell us, what we do is entirely on us. All you've done is tell us, hey, this is going on. This is your perception of what's going on. We have to make a lot of judgments. You're allowed to not like what we do. You're allowed to hold us accountable for what we do. But the one thing that we want to make clear is don't take this on yourself. It's not your fault, whatever we do in response to that. Okay? We have a couple areas that we're going to tell you. I'm put on the slide right now. There's 7 areas of items that we want you to feel responsible to say. We have these specific things. It's like, please come to us if there's any one of these 7 things. We're just flashing those up there so you see them and you can say, hey, here's what we're talking about. I should go right away. If you have a question, email us. However, I'm going to drill down on 2 of them that you have to contact us, and it's very clear. If you suffer a physical injury, or someone else around you who's participating, facilitator, participant, staff, suffers a physical injury, tell us immediately. Okay? We need to know that there's physical injury. Our primary concern with physical injury, and what we're going to drill down onto, we might start asking questions, we might get you help if it's you're calling us, is what happened because somebody just got hurt, so we're worried about other people getting physically hurt. We have a clear identifiable hazard because something just happened. All right, so you have to tell us if you suffer a physical injury or if someone else around you suffers a physical injury. All right, so just to stomp that one more time, if you know that you or someone else has suffered a physical injury, you must contact the online facilitator via direct message. Sounds like a question, right? Or at least an answer to a question. All right, we do have a couple limitations. All right, here's a big one. When you signed up in the code of conduct, you said that you're responsible for your own food, your own property, and your own sleeping arrangements. So don't contact us about lost items because we don't have a lost and found because we don't have a venue. Okay? If you went to the New York Public Library and you lost something, the only thing that we could do is call the New York Public Library and say, we know somebody who lost it. So just take us out of the loop. We're going to be really busy. Go to the place that you lost it. Okay? We do not have a lost and found. All right? We cannot provide you food or drink of any sort. Okay, we're just not doing that. We cut out all the risk of that one, and then we are not in the business of giving you sleeping arrangements. All right, we do have some places to sleep, but those are for staff who I'm bringing in. And the biggest thing is we haven't accepted the risk of what happens when you go to sleep. All right, um, we're encouraging everybody to get their own sleeping arrangements with people that we know that are spread out. And if you call us panicked at 4 a.m., we will help you get home, but we also want to know where you're going. All right. And we're not monsters. If it's an emergency, we're going to do it. But you can believe me, like, hey, let's get you safe and sound or something like that. But then before you go back into play, we're going to be like, all right, let's work together. Make sure you know where you're sleeping at night because it ain't going to be in the same place, right? We're going to figure that out together. All right. Here's another thing. Your facilitators are paid contractors, all right? And we're paying them a rate that's based on the hour. It's not quite up to that. And they are instructed to know about Discord and to give you a quick response on Discord. And some of them are hardcore LARPers who probably want to jump in there with you and can if they want to. But you have to understand that they are on their own time. For example, they might be going somewhere to their next thing, or they might be eating lunch, and that's kind of their time, all right? So what we don't want you to do is like follow them from scene to scene unless they tell you to come with them. They'll be very clear. Sometimes they're going to move you, or if you see them sitting in the corner eating by themselves, they leave them alone. That's why we have Discord. You can contact them over Discord, and if they're reachable, they will respond to you. But what we don't want you to do is track those people down and make them play 24/7 because we're not paying them that much, all right? You can always contact the online facilitator, but also remember the online facilitator has 3 things they're doing, all right? Their first priority is safety, which hopefully is taking up too much of their time. Their second priority is logistics, which should take up a bunch of their time. Okay, logistics is really big. And after they've taken care of all the safety concerns and all the logistics concerns, then they might do some role play with you, all right? Realize that that's very low. Another thing that I want to touch on right here, because it's come up in the past, when you're talking to the online facilitator or talking to a facilitator, realize we don't have thousands of pages of lore, okay? What you have seen is 90% of what's written down, and that other 10% we have a plan on getting to you. They're going to be trained to say yes and, all right? So if you get an I don't know, or if it's going a little bit in a circle, just back off, because this isn't real, and we can't go to Wikipedia and figure everything out. All right, just realize when you're making requests of information, particularly in role requests, that's a lower priority, and the people need to find somewhere to go. The logistics and a lower priority than safety. I think I hit that one enough. Now for you, let's say that you have a problem and it's not resolved. If it's not urgent, you can email us. Email the staff at Sinking Ship Creations, crew at sinkingshipcreations.com. You can email me directly. I get it either way. And we'll get back to you as soon as you can. That's if it's not urgent. If it's an emergency, call us, 315-944-0348. You'll be seeing that number again. Highly recommend you put it in the phone. Now, here's a big one. If a member of the staff, including myself, behave inappropriately, contact the safety team. You can find them on Discord. Look for the asterisk and the word safety in the user list. We've given Kat, our safety officer, full confidentiality. So if you need to, they can help you if you have a problem all the way on the top. What if you have problems with, let's just talk about that one for a second. We have told Kat that they can handle anything that would relate to improper behavior on our part. They can bring some information, they can bring us no information, and they're going to base that kind of on what you want. Okay, but that is there completely separate. Realize that if you tell Kat, don't tell anybody else, Kat's our safety officer and is there to make sure that no harm is going to come to you after that and try and prevent it from other people having harm. But we're not going to be able to fix a problem long term. But they're there for your safety at that point, saying, how do we make you feel safe without worrying about other people finding out? What if you have interactions with people in authority not directly involved Scapegoat? These include owners and managers of establishment, local law enforcement, or security. If you're confronted by an owner, manager, or security, remember the 3 C's. Comply. Do what they ask within reason. Communicate. Let the staff know immediately by way of the online facilitator And C, clear the area. Leave as soon as you can. So comply, communicate, and clear the area. All right? Now we keep talking about the online facilitator. What if you don't have internet? Text us. Text us at 315-944-0348. That's a great way of getting in touch with us. All right? So we're 45 minutes in. I have 15 minutes to talk about a couple of rules, including our safety mechanics. We're going to practice most of those on level 1. But first, because we're playing in public, we don't use any hand signals except for the hands up, which is a natural gesture. So the big thing that we want you to remember is our verbal safety statement. We're going to use this for a lot. The verbal safety statement tells everyone that what you're saying is of out of role importance. We have some specific uses, but you can use it for anything that you need to communicate out of role information. And it's important that you remember that if you need to quickly and clearly signal somebody, use this out of character statement. So how do we make an out of role safety statement? We make an out of role safety statement by using the words really, really in a sentence. So once again, how do we make an out of role safety statement? We make an out of role safety statement by using the words really, really in a sentence. That's a big one right there, remember? So here, are you really, really okay? I really, really need you to stop. I really, really need some help. These are signals to us. For example, we don't use the OK Checkin sign, which is a whole nother discussion in Scapegoat, but instead we're going to use a verbal statement. We're going to use a really, really statement. If you hear the really, really statement, you're being asked something out of character. For example, if I'm playing an NPC and I'm too close to you and I'm a little bit worried about what you're saying, I'm going to ask you, instead of flashing the OK Checkin sign, I'm going to say, are you really, really okay? And then you're going to respond to me. Instead of giving me a thumbs up, you're going to repeat back, I'm really, really okay. Remember, if I say, are you really, really okay? You need to say back, I'm really, really okay. Otherwise, I'm going to take anything you'd have, say, as a waving gesture or a thumbs down. All right? If I get any other answer, including I'm fine, the first thing I'm going to do is contact the nearest facilitator, or if there is no facilitator, the online facilitator, and say to them, that person is really, really not okay. Can you check on them? Here's what you need to remember. Remember, if the person is not okay, the first thing you do is contact the nearest facilitator. So what do you do if a person's not okay? Contact the facilitator, because you might be the source of what's making them not okay. Go get a staff member. They're trained to handle it. Once again, we keep talking about the OK Checkin because a lot of you are really comfortable with that. All right, it's more flexible and you can do a lot of things. But remember, are you really, really okay? Is like doing the OK sign. I am really, really okay is a thumbs up. All right. If nobody checks in, you can say, I really, really need help. That's the same as flashing somebody the thumbs down. I really, really need help. Or you don't need to necessarily give the thumbs down. We can use the statement to say, hey, what you really, really need, and make it a positive statement, like I really, really need some water, or I really, really need to leave right now. All right? Just remember, the only hard and fast one is if somebody asks you, are you really, really okay? You have to respond, I'm really, really okay. Some other things you can use really, really statements. You can use it to calibrate. Okay, I really, really want to fight right now. I really, really want to be alone right now. I really, really don't want to go to this meeting. You can use it to kind of make an if-then statement when you're yes ending. It's just like, if you keep talking to my sibling like that, I'm really, really going to yell at you. Okay, which says if you do that. Or if somebody says that, he makes that if-then statement with the really, really in it, I could say, I really, really don't want you to yell at me right now. That's basically saying, nah, let's not do that. All right? Also, yeah, that's pretty good. If somebody gives you a really, really statement and you want to acknowledge it, you can give them the thumbs up. It's kind of the thing. It's just like, I got it. All right, we still got the thumbs up sign. So, are you really, I really, really want to be alone right now. I just give them a thumbs up and leave. All right. So once again, the outer role safety statement is anything that includes really, really. There's one more thing. If somebody says, I really, really need you to stop, or anything like that, I really, really need you to leave me alone, but really, really need you to stop, remember that. That means stop. They don't want to role play with you right now. Okay? If they say, I really, really need help, stop what you're doing and help them. All right? Work that in. When you have the really, really, say, all right, I'm going to be a good person right now and think of what I can do. But remember, somebody says, if you say, are you really, really okay? And they give you any answers other than really, really okay, what are you going to do? You're going to go find the nearest facilitator. All right. Now, the last thing that we have mechanics-wise is our in-play signal. Now, we've talked about this one. All right. This is a sign that somebody is participating in Scapegoat. Everybody involved is going to have one of these on when they're in roll. All right. If they don't have one of these on, they're not in roll. Okay. I dropped it on the floor. Excuse me. Live theater, everybody, right? So these are what we're going to give you when you show up to level 1. Or if you come late, we're going to have you stop by ops and pick up what we call your signal band. This is what we're calling it. It's just a gray sweatband. It can go on over clothing. If you want to put it on a jacket, there's plenty of room for it. You can wear it on your hand. All right, for some reason, you can wear it half on, half off your hand. We're okay with that, however you want to do it. Here's the rules, all right? You might not like this. You're like, I really think that looks like crap, Ryan. All right, here's the rules. It has to be gray. It has to be invisible at all times on your right wrist or right hand optionally. It has to be removable and it has to be 1 to 3 inches wide so it's visible, okay? You can make your own safety band, your own signal band, if it meets those criteria, or we're going to provide one to you, all right? But it's very important. If somebody doesn't have this on, they're considered a non-participant. Even if you know that. If I'm not wearing this, you can come to me, it's like, Ryan, how's it going? I'm like, I'm good, I'm taking a break. I really, really want to be alone right now. Or something like that. But that means that, right now, I am not participating. I am not in role, okay? I am not in role. I am just Ryan. I'm not a character that I'm playing. I'm not within the context of Scapegoat. All right? So this is your sign that somebody's in role, all right? If somebody's out of role, you all know the look down. We don't want you walking around a crowded club like this, all right? What we want you to do is we want you to take your right hand and take the signal band off. This is the out of role signal, okay? You're going to put it somewhere near your head or neck, all right? Because this is kind of normal. People touch their face, all right? People touch their neck. I'm clearly showing that my right wrist doesn't have a band on it, all right? So this is a sign that I don't have it, that I am out of role right now. This means leave me alone. It's the same as what look down in other LARPs. I am out of role. I can use this to enter or exit scenes. If I want to, if 2 people have their wrist off, what they're saying is out of character, so you can use that for out of role negotiation. If you do, we ask that you go off to the side. But this is a sign that I'm out of role, all right? It takes a little bit, if you notice. It's not like I'm not even going to do the hand-on-head motion or the fingers crossed. It's actually 2 motions to do it. It is taking the band off and touching your face. We're doing that for a reason. It's that we do want to try and keep things generally in character, but we want to have a clear signal of who is and who isn't involved. All right. 52 minutes. We went over a lot of topics. Let's review them one more time. Our 3 things that we want you to know at the end of this hour. What is Scapegoat's #1 threat? Other participants. Do not role play with non-participants. Screw that one up. Let's try that one again, right? What is Scapegoat's #1 threat? Non-participants. Do not role play with non-participants. Second question. When in doubt, who do you contact? Contact the online facilitator if you have any issues and aren't sure who to contact. And 3, how do we make an out-of-role safety statement? We make an out-of-role safety statement by using the words really, really in a sentence. All right. So you should be able to answer all the questions on your quiz. If not, go back, try and find your place right now, figure it all out. You should be getting to the point where all the questions are pretty much answered. There should be 1 question left, right? All right. We need you to go to Discord. Remember, Discord is very safe. To just give you a little bit under the hood, there's other things that we might not have mentioned here, and you might say, well, what about that? These sorts of things we're trying to build into the design so that you don't have to worry about them. Discord lets you reach us at any time, and it's our primary means of out-of-role communication. So we need to make sure you're on Discord before you even show up. So we need you to send us a screenshot of your Discord server. Okay, we just need the part that shows the different channels. The reason that we need that is I know that if you have those channels showing, you have logged onto Discord, and I have gone in and changed your name to your character handler so it's standardized. You have the proper permissions for everything, but most importantly, that you are on Discord and we know that you're on Discord. So you can't complete this without taking that screenshot. So go ahead and take that screenshot and upload it now. I can wait. I only have a few things left. All right. You can submit the quiz. There's no more questions. The last thing for us to do before I say thank you and goodbye is go over what's going to happen when you come in for level 1. Before I get into that, you might be like, what if I miss level 1? Well, we plan on doing 2 level 1s. And the second thing is that when you come in, if you come in and you aren't coming in at a level 1, you'll come in and talk to us, and we'll go over and make sure that you're ready to get started. You've already had the safety, so that's mostly for your role play and to make sure that, hey, are you ready to go? What can we do for you? And we'll give you special instructions if that applies to you. For everybody else, level 1, the main level 1 is happening Wednesday night. It's an in-roll workshop. We call it level 1 because it's like level 1 of a video game. We are going to walk you through the first few moments of Scapegoat, your first in-roll interactions. You're going to get your signal band. We're going to check your Discord. We're going to practice a buddy system together. We're going to practice your really, really statements. We're going to introduce things like hooks, which are how we tell you where to go, all right? And how you work with the facilitators. We're also going to give you a chance to develop in-roll ties. You'll meet your lineage during level 1. All these things that you might do during the character building part of a workshop, we're going to do in-roll over 3 hours from 6 to 9 on Wednesday night. All right? We're also going to try and teach you a little bit of yes and. That's going to be something that we're going to try and do organically and get you comfortable with that. I'll be working with the facilitators on techniques to do that. But there's one thing that we do want to go over before we finish this one. Out-of-role negotiation, since level 1 is entirely in character, we can't really talk about out-of-role negotiation, as some of you had some questions on it. I want to go over the different levels of out-of-role negotiation that we have. All right, first off, out-of-role negotiation, you notice that we gave you the really, really the out-of-role safety statement. We gave you that, and we focused on, are you really, really okay? I really, really need you to stop. I really, really need some help. Those kind of cover a lot of the out-of-role negotiation for safety purposes, okay? And that's really how we think of out-of-role negotiations, primarily for safety and out-of-role needs, unless for in-role negotiation, our style of LARP asks you to try and do those in-role. That's a primary way, but the alternate way, which is just as valid, is stuff that people have practiced at other LARPs or other LARP communities. You can still do that. I just want to go over a couple of those. First, you can use the really, really to steer. You can actually use really, really like green light, red light. Are you really, really okay if I start yelling at you right now? If you keep talking about my parent, I'm going to get really, really angry. These are some examples of negotiation statements. Just quick in-roll negotiation. You can use it for consent. Is it really, really okay if I kiss you right now? Is it really, really okay if I push you down? You can also use Discord for detailed communications. The reason that we do this is that when you have a phone and you start typing on a phone, it doesn't break immersion for those around you. So more detailed stuff, start texting each other. It's completely normal. However, if you want to have a more detailed, some people do, negotiation scene, just take off, make the out-of-role signal, walk into a corner, and just talk to each other like that. And when you're ready, go back and role play. So those are our out-of-role negotiation tools that we won't be covering at level 1. It is about 59 minutes in the video. I got this all done in an hour. Once again, I want to apologize for the video quality. I don't know it yet. I'm hoping the sound quality is good, or I'm going to have to spend another hour of my life yelling at you. But not for anything you did wrong, but just so that I'm heard. But generally speaking, the most important thing to us is that you're safe and comfortable while you're playing Scapegoat. You're done with the workshop. If you have any questions, please email me, crew at thinkychipcreations.com. And like I said, just under an hour. Thank you very much.